Dallas, but it's okay. Worst things have happened. All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it happens to be. It's actually afternoon here, and beautiful, warm, nearly tropical temperatures, or 14 degrees, one of the two. All right, so I want to talk about what we need to complete this week. So really quickly, I'm in week 2. There is a quiz over the material in week 2, and again, that's due by Sunday at midnight. Helpful if I correct the right class. So there is a quiz. There is a discussion board, and this link, the weird thing, and I'll just take it out actually to make sure. And the link takes you directly into the entire piece, but doesn't take you to the part where you can actually see the assignment. So we'll talk about that. I've got a couple of videos from a different textbook I'd like you to watch. I think it's got some interesting pieces. So I encourage you to do that. There is a PowerPoint. And then actually from the author of this textbook, there's some videos down here. So there's 4 videos. They're each about 5 minutes, so they're not incredibly long. And they'll go through some of the content in the chapter to give you some assistance. Over on the discussion board, so what we're looking at is a mission statement, and we want to argue your point. What impact does that mission statement have? And we certainly argue here at our college about our mission statement all the time, about what it means, and do we need to change it? And so you'll see we have a ton of pieces about it. So when you look at Peru, you can certainly find our mission statement. See if I can drag it over there. So our mission statement provides students of all backgrounds access to engaging educational experiences to strengthen and enrich communities, Nebraska, and the world. And I think that actually does work for us. Now, I've already had a couple of people post, and sometimes they don't fit what actually is happening at the organization. So we try. Do we always succeed in our mission? No. Do we probably need to tweak it at some point? Probably, and start figuring out how we can refine that a little bit. So, discussion board for this week. And then the biggie. The big piece of this week is part 1 of your project for the entire semester. So, this first section really says we're going to have to select an organization. And usually, I have a ton of emails by now, but I know this semester started out a little weird, so I'll kind of give that one a pass. And what I'm going to start doing is also putting in some scheduling so we can do some either on campus or Skype sessions and kind of work through these together. So as you start looking at this, you may want to send me questions. I typically will try to reply as quickly as possible. So you are looking for a business that you can work with. So it is going to take some time and effort on your part to identify that business, to work with them, and see if you can get permission to do this. What you are doing is essentially you are putting yourself in the shoes of an IT/business consultant, and you are coming in and doing a technology overview or information systems overview of that organization, making recommendations, and in some cases making some implementations of what those changes are. So, when we look at that, the organizations that can benefit from this most, I really love the idea of nonprofit organizations. So, some kind of an organization that's already strapped for resources, if you can give them a little bit of an assistance, sometimes that is really a nice task. The businesses that this doesn't work well for, so let's pick on Kroger Foods. If you said, oh, I want to do this over Kroger Foods, well, you probably don't have access to people that can implement change. And in fact, just doing this overview of a company that size was far larger project than what we're looking for. So a small business, typically say 5 employees kind of size, or you can do a small part of a business if it's able to implement change. If you're just going to do the review and it's going to go in the trash can afterwards, that doesn't help you or learn about what kind of choices you are. So Because now you're saying, oh, it's a CMIS class, I got to have a company that has computers and lots of them. And that's not actually true. So every organization has information systems. They may not be computerized. So as an example, there may be a small mom and pop cafeteria style restaurant, and if you look, they have information systems. They take an order, and somehow that order gets back to the kitchen. That order gets rung up, and you pay, and they have some kind of accounting system. Now, that is all that system may be paper-based, and they may have made a paper form to figure out what things they need to order. But there is some kind of information system in place. We just have to identify it and see if there's ways we can offer some improvements. So, this first section is not, let me repeat that again, is not where you start making recommendations. What I'd like you to do is walk in the door with this business unbiased. So you've gotten a call from this organization and you would like to give them some assistance. So you're doing a technology audit of what they have going on. That technology also including things like paper, pencils, how is information passed. So almost every business can work for this. I have had students do this with everything from a trash service to a restaurant to some very high-tech businesses to banks to all different kinds of things. So every one of those we get a slightly different flavor of what's going on. So when you look down here and you say, oh, well, I have to write 4 pages about it, so let's talk about what's actually included in that. So obviously you need the name of the business, the name, title, background information on the contact person, how you're going to be interacting with them. So this may take some legwork, and some people will say no. So if you don't have those resources, how are you going to get the information and how are you going to present it back? So that's step 1. So you've identified a business you think would work. You've asked them and they said yes, and you listed your contact information. Now, I used to be far more lenient on this until a couple of semesters ago. I had a student take this class and completely tried to make up a company. Quite frankly, they did more work than if they would have actually used a real company. So, don't do that. So, a description of the business and industry. So, SIC codes, things like that. There are tons of resources about different industries. You can use Census Bureau data. You can use Bureau of Labor and Statistics data. There's all kinds of things. So if I pick a small restaurant, you can tell me about that restaurant industry in general. What is its trends? What is happening? What is the predictions for that? Certainly things you might want to include are, if you're doing a food industry, has COVID affected that? Certainly, probably has. What kind of things are going on there? What's the industry standard? So if it's in a small town and it's one of 2 restaurants, do you automatically see a competitor? So the industry that you are looking at, you should have some information about competitors. So you're really kind of doing a real quick SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. So Census Bureau is a great deal. Our library has a lot of online resources. Here's where I'm going to ask you to go. So one of the things in our discussion board is up here is your final creation board. So you can create a running thread, and I'm going to subscribe to that thread. So anytime you post anything new, it'll pop up there. So if you don't want to send me emails, you can also use this discussion board and say, hey, I have a question about that. We're also going to try to create a schedule so that we can touch base via Skype or Zoom or some other remote technology several times during the semester, and we can certainly make that available when you have questions. So this sets the path for everything we're going to do in the future. This is the biggest point item. This is the item that we're going to draw most of the content from, and this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time and resources in there. So we're going to have a lot less classwork than a typical course. You're going to have a lot more independent work on there. So You talk about the industry, you look at that SWOT analysis, you can certainly ask questions if it's appropriate. If you have questions if a business will work, email me and I will respond as quickly as possible with some suggestions, alterations, whether it would work or not. So I've had some that I had to go, for the sake of whatever reason, let's not do that particular item. Let's work on something a little different. So, and I'll try to point some other options at you. So you're going to work hand in hand with this other organization. And again, I love nonprofits, but it doesn't have to be. Small businesses are great. They typically are constrained by resources. They don't know where to move, where to go to. Now, the one thing I will say with either of these is be prepared at the end of this project, and we'll talk again about it, but be prepared at the end that not all of your suggestions, as great and wonderful as they are going to be accepted. There will probably be some pushback at the end of, well, I don't want to do that. We've always done it this way. And that's a phrase that you're probably going to hear. And small businesses, often that is insurmountable, but hopefully they'll see some value in where we're headed and what we're doing. All right, so a couple extra videos, more videos, PowerPoints for you to read through, the material to read through. And as I said, we do have a weird issue. I'm going to be switching some content out from another textbook simply because Cengage apparently didn't want to tell me that they're discontinuing the book. The book has had a long run, and that's okay. We're really looking at some content pieces, not a specific textbook. So if I change things up a little bit, be prepared, and I will try to make sure you're informed as we go through that. So this week shouldn't take 50 hours to do, but these are the kinds of things we need in there. The other piece that I really think is handy is a reference list in APA format. And here's what I'll say. We all have access now to Office 365. I love open source software. The tools in the latest version of Word are kind of nice because you can keep a reference list kind of almost as a database of different reference options in there. And it will do a lot of the legwork for you. I think that is great. It's not always perfect, but it does a really nice job. So if you haven't upgraded to the latest version of Office on our 365 account, please do so. It will behoove you because it does make your life a little easier. You can do it all manually, but quite frankly, you could also use a typewriter, and certainly we've passed the end of that. So that's what we have for this week. So this week I really need the concentration on this particular item. Contact me, email me. Don't wait until Sunday at 11 p.m. to say, hey, can I use this company? You need to do this as quickly as possible. And again, this is the part that is the toughest, is finding and selecting a business that's willing to work with you. And I know COVID makes that an even more interesting challenge. Once you've started this, in a lot of cases, you can do it without being physically present, but typically to contact somebody, you will. So keep that in mind, that COVID could certainly affect this and how we do these projects. So, all right, let me pause here for a second.